Okay. Hello, everyone. This is J.D. Seal, and I'm Vice President at SkyView Partners, and I'm happy to be able to introduce this morning's session on 10 ways for making your IBM I security administration easier. Today's host will be Carol Woodbury, President of SkyView Partners. SkyView Partners is a consulting and software provider for system security in both the IBM I and AIX computing environments. Founded in 2002, SkyView is committed to delivering products and services that not only provide our customers with sound advice, but also saves them time and reduces the costs and complexities of security administration, including compliance. Today's host is Carol Woodbury, co-founder, president, and CTO of SkyView Partners. Prior to forming SkyView, Carol spent 16-plus years at IBM in positions including Chief Engineering Manager and Security Architect for IBM's iSeries Security Group. Carol is also the author of the new book, IBM I Security, Administration, and Compliance, available at MC Press Online. You will get this link if you need to get her book in an email after the session. SkyView Partners provides various software solutions, including the SkyView Risk Assessor for IBM I, our automated vulnerability assessment, SkyView Policy Minder, our automated security administration tool, the SkyView Audit Journal Reporter, which is predefined auditor-ready reports, as well as our new Policy Minder for IBM AIX, using agentless technology to allow you to easily manage multiple AIX servers through a graphical and browser-based admin console. And remember, at SkyView Partners, we don't charge for installation and basic configuration. We also provide various services, including our SkyView Security Checkup for both the IBM I and AIX platform, our managed services for compliance reporting, as well as various re-architecture and remediation services. Please contact us if we can help you with those. So with that, I want to introduce our presenter this morning on 10 ways for making your IBM I security administration easier. SkyView Partners President Carol Woodbury. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, JD. Hope you're doing well, everyone. And thanks for joining me. I know that as an administrator, a lot of you have tasks that you have to perform, and you typically are wearing multiple hats, and so your days are incredibly full. And so the goal of this presentation is to show you how you can make some of those administration tasks easier. So again, the goal of this is to help you automate some of those tasks that are normally done manually, and ultimately to save you time. So tip number one, you have multiple systems and you want to make sure that systems look alike. So that typically is that you have production and you want to make your QA system look like production. And when I say look like, I mean from a security perspective. Or you want your test system to look exactly like your production system. And let me back up for a moment. All of these examples have been taken from our customers. So I'm not making these up. These are real-life things that system administrators in the IBM I world are doing with our software to help make their lives easier. So we have a number of clients that have purchased Policy Minder, and then they will configure the way that their libraries and their user profiles and system values and so forth are to look. And then they take that configuration and they move it over to multiple systems. Usually, in that case, it is the first time that they've ever had, especially from an application point of view, their quality assurance or their test system actually mimic what they have on the production system. So how would you do that? Let me take you there and I'll show you how you do this. First of all, we have to go to the Policy Minder product. And with Policy Minder, we cover a number of different areas of the system. So I'll take you to work with policies. And you can see all of the areas of the system where you can take either a snapshot of what it currently looks like through a function called initialize and move it over, or you can define certain areas, and we'll get into that in a little bit more. Things like defining the authorities or the ownership for specific libraries, defining how user profiles are to be configured. So you can take all of these categories, and at a minimum, people typically want their system values to be the same on all systems. So what you can do is use the function called import policies, and you can see that we allow you to specify all of these categories. And all you have to do is actually go to that system, and this is a pull function. You go to the target system, you pull over which categories you want. You have then imported the values that are supposed to be on the system, and then you can run what we call a compliance check and fix it, and now all of the values are the same. Let me show you that in the terms of system values. Say I have imported my policies for system values to a target system. All I would have to do simply is run this work with compliance. And I'll do a compliance check. It will identify any system values that don't match what my policy says that they're supposed to match. If we drill down into this category, you can see I've got several things that are not in compliance. We can take a look at, for instance, the library list. And obviously the library lists aren't matching. So what would I want to do? I would definitely want to get these to be matched up. Things like save restore values, okay, are not matching. So what I would do, quite simply, is make sure that fix-it is enabled. So I'm going to go back into work with policies. You have this value, and by default we ship our fix-it function as not being enabled or enabled no. The reason we do this is because fix-it is actually going to change my system value settings when I run it. So it's enabled. So I'm going to go to work with compliance and run fix-it. And what it's doing is changing the system values so that they now match my policy. So if I had 5 systems, all I would have to do is import my system value parameters or category to those 5 systems, run a compliance check to identify what fix-it needs to change, run fix-it, and I'm done. Now, how do you know it was actually changed? You can look at the message log. So you have a record of all of the system values that were changed during that time. Okay, so that's one thing. Now again, the clients that are using this function are absolutely thrilled with it because, again, this is the first time that they've really been able to have systems match each other, especially those QA and those production systems. Okay, so that's tip number 1. And here's just a screenshot of the import policies, or what you would take for importing the policies. Okay, tip number 2. Now we have a lot of people who are running HA software, the high availability software. It really doesn't matter what kind you run, but there are a number of times when it may either have been misconfigured, turned off, doesn't handle certain things well. And so what you can do is, again, use that import function to make sure that your system is in the right state, either right before the role swap occurs or right after the role swap occurs. So what we've been hearing from our customers is that there are certain areas of security configuration that they typically have to fix up by hand, being authorization lists. So, and somewhat with user profile settings, authorities to libraries and files and system values. But since we've heard the area of authorization lists be such an issue for some people, again, let me show you what that would look like. So again, with PolicyMinder, what you can do, and again, what the goal of our products is to save you time. Not just in administration tasks, but in the task of preparing for a role swap. So what you can do is take a snapshot of what the current settings are. So here you're on your system that you are running currently in production. So I'm going to take a snapshot of that, and I'm going to do that by running the initialize policy function. When I run initialize policy, if I would run it for all of these categories, it basically allows me to do a baseline, or I say a current snapshot of what the current settings are for all of these different categories. Right now I'm just interested in the authorization lists. So when I run the initialize, what it's doing is looking at all of the authorization lists on the system, and now it has brought in as my policy those values for those authorization lists. So let me show you what that looks like. When we go, I'm working with the policies. When we go to the authorization list category and we drill down in here, you can see that the authorization lists that exist on the system have been brought in, and these are the authorization lists that are currently there, along with whoever is authorized to these authorization lists. The next step that you would do, and again, this is either before your role swap or after, whatever your process is, it doesn't matter, but what you could do is either use the export policies to a file, or you could go to the target system that is going to be the part of the role swap and import the policies. And again, all you have to do is import the one category that you're interested in, right, and option everything off, but make sure you have the authorization list there. And you would import that in. Again, you repeat the process that I showed in the first tip, where on the target system, all you now have to do is say work with compliance, and then you would run the compliance check. In this case, it's not a good example because everything is in compliance, because this is the same system. But you would run the compliance check, and then you would run fix-it, and now your authorization lists are the same on both the target system and the source system. So again, we have heard that this has literally saved days worth of time in trying to sort out why people didn't have the right authorities on the target system and so forth. So with that, hopefully it will save you a few days of time, or at least a few hours. Okay, tip number 3, the use of specific commands. So we've had, and I'm not trying to pick on the high availability software this morning, but we had some customers that were very concerned. They had a case where journaling had been turned off. Now obviously if you're using high availability, they typically thrive off those journals from the files, not just the audit journals, but the journals associated with your database files, your application database files. So when journaling gets turned off from one of those files, number one, it could present a data integrity problem if you are using commit and rollback functions. If the journaling is turned off, you won't be able to roll back. The other thing is that it might not, those changes to those files may not be replicated over to the target system. So when you do the role swap, your files aren't actually in sync. And again, that can certainly cause some problems either during the replication process or certainly after that role swap. So again, what do you do in this case? Well, we're going to use a different product in this case. So in this case, we're going to use our Audit Journal Reporter product. Now, anytime you want to know who did something or the fact that something occurred in real time, that's when you want to look at something out of the audit journal. And the Audit Journal Reporter product is designed to make getting information out of the audit journal easier for you, so that you don't have to know when when something has occurred or the specific details of how it's formatted in the audit journal and so forth. So you could use this example for any command that you want to track. Some people have used this to know when like the update data command is used, or perhaps they want to know and be alerted to the fact when the start DFU product is used, for example. But in this case, we wanted to make sure that we knew every time that an end journal command was used. So I'm in the Audit Journal Reporter product, and I'm going to first do something called Work with Condition Lists. These are our filters for our reports. So I'll take option 1. And we have a lot of different reports. Basically, we have a report or 2 for every audit journal entry type that's available for IBM I. And we also have some specialized ones. So one of the ones that we have is the use of specific commands. So I'm going to modify this, and you can see that I've already set this up so that I could get an example out of it easily, mainly. And what we did at these clients is to use the end journal, and we used a generic because there's actually multiple end journal commands, if you didn't know that. And again, so that I could easily force an example, I just added work sysval. Now, one of the things that you want to make sure of is that you have auditing turned on for those commands. So that'd be the change object odd, and we're going to do the work system value command. So you just need to set this up so that you can make sure to generate those audit entries. And we will say that we want all uses of this command. So I have turned object auditing on for that command. I would also turn that on for all of the end journal commands, or whatever command that you're trying to monitor the use of. So we did that step. Then we did some modifications to the queries. So we have, when we ship the product, we have some destinations, or really they're just groupings of commands, and we do that so that you can easily run multiple reports at a time, and also to give you an idea of the reports that we want you to start with. So we have some basic groupings. If you do nothing else, run these basic groupings. But what you can do is create your own group of reports, and so I created a group called AJR Alert. So this is how I know that this is going to be a different type of report. And I've also changed the output type from a printed output to a message. And when I do that, I have the option to either say that I want an alert sent either to email or to a text message via my phone. So then I set up a job that will look for the use of these commands in the audit journal entry. So this is a never-ending job. You can set the time frame for how often you want to examine the audit journal for the use of these commands. What I did was look every 5 minutes for the use of these commands. You can set it more frequently, you can set it less frequently. It just depends on how close to real time you want this. So I did that. I used the command, and what happened at that point was that I got an alert that looked like this. And this is the example of the email alert. So it will show you the date, the time, what system it was coming from, and who did it, and also the name of the object that was in use. So in this case, the user CJW used the work sysval command. So it's very easy to read this report. You would get a similar looking report to your phone. That has saved them countless times from having those, for not being aware of when the end journal command was used. Now, you can also filter out normal activity. You probably are ending journaling for certain situations, maybe a full system save, or there may be certain users that need to use that command and are allowed to use that command. Not a problem. You can filter out the normal activity so that only the abnormal activity is alerted on. Again, saving you time. Okay, next, let's discover new libraries. Now, why would you want to discover new libraries? Well, when we do our security checkup service, and that's where we look at the risk assessor reports. We have a product called Risk Assessor, and some people choose to have us look at those reports and then help them with a security checkup. When we do that, one of the reports lists out all of the libraries on the system. And a lot of times when we're going through that report, it's pretty obvious that there have been libraries created on the system that the administrator might not be aware of, or that they would prefer be secured differently and so forth. So it's nice to know when new objects come on the system. So in particular, we're going to show how you can discover new libraries. You can then review that if it is supposed to be on the system. You can also determine if this is a new production library, maybe it needs to be added to a backup schedule. Maybe you have to add it to some replication schedule and so forth. You can also discover new directories, new object types and libraries. This example, I'm going to show you new libraries. But let me back up one time. Why would you want to know about new object types in a particular library? Well, I've seen people use this function to find programs being created into QGPL, save files being created into QGPL. I've seen this function allow administrators to know when program objects are being created into libraries that are designed to hold data and vice versa. So there's a lot of ways where you might want to discover a new thing. So let me show you how that works. So I'm going to go back and use our PolicyMinder product for this one. I'm going to go into Work with Policies, and we're going to go into a category that we haven't looked at yet, and it's the Library Authority category. So I'm going to drill down into that, and you can see I have a number of templates already created there, but what I'm going to do is create a new one, and we're just going to say New Libs. Find new library. And what I'm going to do is include all libraries. So when I do this template creation, what this is simply a way to tell PolicyMinder what to examine. So you may be, and later on you'll see that we will use a template to look at specific libraries, but in this case I want to actually look at all libraries. And this I and O is for include and omit. And again, I'll explain that a little bit more in just a minute. So right now, I want PolicyMinder to look at all libraries. And I'm going to page down. And there are a lot of other parameters. We're going to look at that in a minute. But right now, I'm going to focus on this one that says New Library Allowed. And I'm going to change that from yes to no. And I'm going to create this template. Okay, so I have a template called New Lives. Now I'm going to back out of here, and I'm going to take the option to Work with Compliance, drill down into that library category again, and run a compliance check. Now what it's doing the first time I run a compliance check on this template, what it's doing is getting basically a baseline of all of the libraries on the system. So you can see we have a number of libraries on the system. Okay, so it's got the baseline, and they're all compliant. You can see compliant, yes. So I'm going to pop up a command line. Always can do that from anywhere in this product. And I'm just going to create a new library and call it cleverly New Lib. All right. Now I'm going to rerun that compliance check. So what it's doing during this compliance check is taking that baseline from the original compliance check, and it's going to compare against what the list of libraries that are currently on the system, And anything that was not in the baseline is going to be flagged as being out of compliance. So now we need to drill down into this. You can see the compliance status now changed from yes to next level. That means look down further. Okay, and I've got a bunch of yeses. I'm going to actually subset this, so I can do that through F17. I just want to see the non-compliant items. Surprise, surprise, it's the library that we just created. If I display this, you can see that the policy value was allow new libraries, no, and this is a new library. So very quickly I can identify a new library. Now how would you use this in your daily work? Well, what you could do is schedule this check to run. Okay, so you would do that using the command called check. And I can very specifically target a specific template that I want to run a compliance check against. So then I would say that I want to have a report, and what I would probably do is say I only want the report if there are non-compliant items. So non-compliant, and then you can pop up an email address. You can send it up to 10 people. So when this runs, what it will do is send a report if there are non-compliant items, and in that report it is going to list the new library, and that's all it's going to list. Now if you chose to send the report always and there were no new libraries, it would give you a one-page report saying all is compliant. So in that case you would know that there are no new libraries. So you could have this run on a daily basis, and there it would pop up in your inbox to tell you the new library was created. So again, saving you time and no visual comparison from a list from one day to another day. You can just be told right away that this was created. Now if this is a library that is supposed to be on your system, so it's allowed, what you can do then is go back into work with compliance, and you can take that library and let's get that list up again. You can say accept new, and what that does is put it into the baseline so it will no longer be flagged as being out of compliance. So again, no fuss, no bother. It's there, and now you've got a current list of libraries on your system. Again, you can do the same thing and discover new directories created under root. You can look for new objects created in a particular directory. So we do the same things in directories as we do with libraries. And again, you can look for new program objects created into certain libraries or new files and so forth. So that new function is available throughout both the libraries and directories. And this is just an example of how you set that up. Okay, so tip number 5, ensure authorities and ownership are set correctly. And I've just been recently to 2 separate clients where this was an unbelievable time saver for them. So I've seen people that are preparing for an audit, and about 2 weeks before that audit comes, and this is a real-life example, they will do a dump of all of the objects in their application libraries, and they sit and use a ruler and go by hand to make sure that the objects are owned properly and authorized properly. And they have a really good authorization scheme set up, so their application is very secure. The problem is it is incredibly difficult to know if they've got exceptions using a visual method. And so I was curious how that worked, so I had them send me a file. This text file was so large I could not even import it into an Excel spreadsheet to do any kind of sorting. So that's how much data they were looking at by hand. So my assertion to them was that that was actually physically impossible to do, and that they might want to choose some automation standards. The other thing is that we've heard of people just going, again, with green bar, with a ruler, step by step through things to make sure that they're configured correctly. Let me show you an easier way. So again, I've taken work with policies. Again, I'm going to go into the library authority category, drill down, and press F6 and create a new template. So let's just use an example of J.D. Edwards. These were not J.D. Edwards clients that we had, so I'm not actually using that as an example, but we do have J.D. Edwards clients, and they do use this method. So J.D. Edwards typically has a naming convention, and most applications do have a naming convention. So I will use their naming convention, JD star. So what this is telling PolicyMinder is that look at any library that begins with the letters JD. Now you may have some sort of testing library out there, and this is a good place where you would want to omit that because it does not need to be set up in a particular way. So you can omit that. All right, so this is where we're going to take advantage of these other parameters that you see on the screen. And so you can see I can set up who the owner is supposed to be. J.D. Edwards is typically owned by JDE. The libraries in J.D. Edwards are typically not secured with an authorization list, so I'll say authorization list of none. If these are the only two parameters I'm concerned with, I will simply leave these values at any. So whatever your policy is, whatever you routinely check, whatever you actually care about, maybe you only care to make sure that the ownership is correct within a library. Whatever it is, just specify those parameters, leave the rest of them at the value of any, which is the default, and that means that those things are going to be ignored when you do a compliance check. Again, the point of this product is to check the things that you care about. The rest will be ignored so that you don't get all this data that you have to manually sift through or think, oh, I see this data, but oh, I'm not really concerned about it. You can specify just what you're concerned about so that the result is just what you care about. Okay, so let's say we also care about the public authority on this. And we'll say that the J.D. Edwards libraries should be public use. Okay, if you want to look at the auditing values, you can do that as well. Now, if I am only concerned about the libraries, I just press enter and I can just examine the libraries. But in this case, most people want to look at the objects in the libraries. And again, if I just want to set ownership across all objects, maybe I would simply say I want PolicyMinder to look at all objects of all types, and you can easily do that. A lot of times people will break this down. We have people using this to make sure that the files containing their credit card information or PCI information is secured properly. So in this case, they will specify a specific file name. So you can do that. Or you can look for all files, perhaps. And maybe you just want physical files. So let's go with that example for this. We'll just say files. And again, I can include multiple things. Maybe I want my physical and logical files. And if you forget what the object types are, we have F4 to give you object types. We have help if you want to know attributes and what that means. So again, I can pick and choose the things that I want to be concerned about. Maybe in this case I do have something that is secured with an authorization list, especially files are typically secured with an authorization list. Maybe I want to make sure that there are no private authorities on those on the files, but everything comes from the authorization list. If I want to, I can say, oh yes, and by the way, these files should be journaled. We have several people that are just making sure to use this functionality to make sure that journaling is still configured for particular files, and that it gets configured for new files going into a library. Okay, so we have one thing that we can look at. Maybe we also want to look at programs. And in this case, maybe you want to, again, make sure it's owned properly. But maybe you need to set up that it's supposed to adopt. Oops, that will be the wrong parameter there. Okay. And maybe you just want a catch-all to make sure that everything else is just owned properly. Helps to spell correctly. Okay, so I'll just make sure that it's owned properly. Okay, I'll create this, and then I'll run that compliance check. And again, I can either do that through this check command, or I can do this through the interactive menus, or we actually have a GUI that you can use. So we'll just do it this way. We'll run this. So it's looking through the libraries, or looking for libraries that begin with the letters JD, and it's applying those rules that we set, or the policy that we set up, and it's applying those to those objects in those libraries. So if we drill down, you can see it found 2 libraries. If we drill down further, you can see that there are definitely issues here. Okay, so the policy, the way you read this, is that the values that you said it was supposed to be, or your policy, your criteria, this was compared against the actual settings, and these are the actual settings in the value column. Anything that doesn't match, you can see the owner is correct, but in this case it's secured with the wrong authorization list. So very quickly, you don't have to do anything by hand. It pops up very quickly what is and is not out of compliance. If you have a lot of things out of compliance, and quite frankly, when people first start running this product, there's often a lot of objects in libraries that are not compliant. You can run the AUT compliant command, and rather than looking through printed output or all of these displays, perhaps you want to send it to a stream file. A stream file will allow you to bring the resulting file into Microsoft or some other spreadsheet, Google spreadsheet if you want, and be able to use the sort functions of those spreadsheets. Or you can go to an out file. So again, it's a much easier way to sort and sift through that data. Once you get the results of that data, assuming that there are no exceptions, and you can put exceptions into these files, into these policies for various files or programs or so forth, then all you have to do to make the objects match your policy is, again, enable Fixit on that library template, run Fixit, and Fixit will then make those changes for you. It will change the ownership, it will attach the authorization list, and so forth. And the nice thing is, again, just like the check command, which you would use in a job scheduler, you can schedule the Fixit command. Why is this handy? It's handy because you can schedule it. So if you've ever tried to change the ownership of a file that's open, or if you've ever tried to add an authority to a file that's open, it can't be done. The system, operating system, prevents it. So you can use the Fixit command and simply specify the template that you're working with and schedule this to run at a time when those files won't be locked. Again, if you do this yourself, because I've done this before a PolicyMinder product was available, you have to write CL programs that will loop through and change the ownership. Those programs, you're typically using generics, like all objects in a particular library, so it's going to go through and change the ownership of every object in that library, even though it may already be owned properly. With Fixit, it is targeted to only affect the objects that don't match the criteria or don't match your policy. So again, this is going to run much shorter than if you have written a CL program that will run through everything in the library. Again, it's about saving time and about being convenient. Now, the benefit, again, of PolicyMinder is not just that one-time use. If you think about an audit visit, an auditor visit, you're cleaning up the system and you get it in compliance with however you want your settings to be. So settings match your policy, match your requirements. It's done, auditor leaves. What if a file authority is changed, or what if somebody promotes a program with the wrong owner, or somehow something changes? When are you going to find that those objects no longer match your criteria? It's going to be perhaps not until that auditor comes back again. Some people are only audited once a year, some people more frequently. But regardless, do you really want to wait until your auditor is about to show up till you find that difference? With PolicyMinder, you can check this on a regular basis. What is regular? Well, my term of regular is either daily or weekly. And if you think that that's unreasonable, remember, once you get everything in compliance, the only thing that is going to show up on your reports are the things that don't match your requirements. So is it really unreasonable to check and know on Monday morning that something changed over the last week? Or perhaps on Wednesday that something changed between Tuesday and Wednesday? I don't think so. So it will help you and save you time in the long run. Okay. There are times, tip number 6, there are times when you want to find out who did something and when it was done. So here is one of the things that you can do. We are, in this case, going to use our Audit Journal Reporter product. So in this case, we are going to want to know when a file was deleted. So I've been in multiple offices when somebody has received a phone call saying, hey, a file got deleted and I can't figure out how. So what you can do is get that information out of the audit journal. So again, we're going to work with our filters. One of the reports that we have is showing deleted objects. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this case, and I've already set it up, is to find out, you can either set up to look at the deleted objects out of all libraries, or in another filter you can look for objects deleted out of a directory, or you can look for specifics. So in this case, I'm looking for anything that was deleted out of the library CJW. All right, so we've done that. So then we have conveniently gotten a file called delete me to delete. All right, and now I'm going to run the report. So if you watch this, we will run the report. And again, I can either just press enter and run it out of the current journal receiver, or I can be a little bit more specific. If I know about when the object was deleted, I can do that. So let's see what the audit journal looks like. Okay, so we have the report, and you can see, you will find out the date and the time, the system it was done, who actually deleted it, the object name, so you would obviously know what that was, file. If we shift off to the right, you can see the IP address. So in this case, you can see that this will give you a lot more information about when the object was deleted. And that way you should be able to trace back how it was deleted. Okay. Another one is who changed the system value, and that one is often done. either after an upgrade or a vendor install or an operator changes a system value, forgets to change it back, certain things like that. So again, we'll go into the filter. You can say that you want to look at all system value changes. Okay, let's do that. Or you may have a specific system value you want to look at, either way. Let's look at the report and see what that one looks like. Again, let's see, let's go from yesterday until today. And you can see, oh, let's see, we've got a lot. In this case, and again, if you think about what the previous report looked like versus what this report looks like, we have customized what appears on the report so that you can very much understand the nature of this report. So the last report, it had the deleted objects and who was doing the deletion. In this case, it's system values, and you want to know the new value, and you may want to know the previous value. So it's a 3-line report that tells you that information. The point I wanted to show in showing 2 different reports is that they are very much customized to what you are doing and the information that you want to get out. Now, I've had administrators say that they don't want to turn on auditing because it takes too much resource on their system, in particular storage. And you build up the audit journal receivers, and what are you going to do with it? That's not a problem with audit journal receiver or with audit journal reporter. We can deal with receivers going off the system quickly, and that's because we can configure this product, and in fact it's configured to allow you to gather the information out of the audit journal into what we call extract files. And so you can gather the information into these files and then run your reports out of these intermediate files instead of the audit journal receivers themselves. Why is that important to you as an administrator? That means if you have gotten the information into these files, you are free to take those audit journal receivers off the system at any time, and you can still have the information to run your audit journal reports. So even though you may be short on storage, you can decide the information that is important to you to keep. You can run those extracts and get that information out on a daily basis, and then roll those receivers off. Then if you have somebody who wants a weekly report, for example, not a problem. That report actually comes out of the file that is has been building all that week, and you get that full week's worth of information. So again, from an administrative point of view, this allows you to free up that storage. Okay. Now we're going to move into some user management. So we have people who want to make sure that certain user profiles are configured appropriately. We have people who have several different users that create user profiles, and they have the ability to actually change those profiles after they were created, and sometimes the profiles don't remain in the configuration they want them to be. So we have, again, through PolicyMinder, the ability to make sure that you do that, and that they either are created and stay the same as you want them. So we're going to go back into Work with Policies, and we will go at this time into the user profile category. And what I've done is to create a number of templates. Again, just like the library category, we have these things called templates that allow us to create a definition of what PolicyMinder is going to look at. So I'm just going to call this cleverly group configuration. And I have a group called supergroup. And I want to make sure that every member of this group is configured properly. Now when I go to look at how I can examine users, I can do that on a number of different ways. List of ways. I am in this case going to look at all the members of this particular group, specifically supergroup. Okay, when I do that, again, you'll see a lot of different parameters, and again, you can pick and choose what is important to you. In this case, I wanted to make sure that all of those users are a member of the user class, user class, that they have no special authorities, that their initial menu is sign off, and that their password expiration interval is sysval. Limited capabilities should be yes, and I want to make sure that they have no default passwords. So when I run a compliance check against that, again, we'll just do it. In this case, we'll do the check command. And again, I could send this by email if I wanted to. Okay, so it's looking, generating the report. Non-compliant items were found. Again, you can have an indication. Perhaps you have message management software. So as you're running scheduled jobs, it may detect that you have non-compliant items, and you can do something different with this report than what we would do. I mean, there's all manner of things that you can do to automate this. So we'll just take a look at what is not compliant. Where's my group? There we go. So you can see that there are different 5 different profiles, none of which are compliant. It's not the best, is it? Let's see what's the problem here. Okay, so again, my definition of how they're supposed to be is always in the middle under the policy column. What was discovered is going to be on the right in the value column. And you can see that anything that doesn't match is highlighted. So in this case, it's not limited capabilities and it's not sign off. So again, all I would have to do in this case is simply run fixit, and it would fix it. Now, if you don't want to run fixit, if you would prefer to fix these profiles yourself, not a problem. You can do that. The next time you run the compliance check, it will be in compliance. But we have that option for you if you want it. Okay, so that's making groups so configured correctly. Inactive profiles. Again, I see a lot of administrators who continue to struggle with inactive profiles, and they are left on the system. Their security best practices as well as regulations like PCI say that inactive profiles need to at least be disabled after a minimum of 90 days of inactivity. The problem is that a lot of people have written their own tools and produce a list, and then from that list have to go in and take action by hand. Or they will look at the wrong date. A lot of people look at the last sign-on date rather than the last used date, and so that can cause problems. There's a tool with the operating system under Sec Tools that allows you to disable profiles, but it doesn't allow you to review that list if you have that need, or produce a formal report for your auditors. So PolicyMinder will allow you to do all of that. So again, go into the user profile category. I've already got this set up. We will just take a look at this inactive template. In this case, I'm looking for profiles that are inactive 60 days. You can put whatever value you want to in here. And I am going to eliminate my group profiles from this examination. Any of the profiles that begin with the letter Q, any profiles that own objects. What I want to do is get down to a list of profiles that I know if they show up, I have to take action on. So that's why I'm omitting these profiles, and I may need to omit more once I run this a couple times. The attribute that I'm looking at in this case is the status attribute. And what I'm going to say is that any profile that is inactive 60 days or more needs to be a status of disabled, or else it's going to be identified as out of compliance. Basically, it doesn't match my criteria or it doesn't match my policy. When I run this compliance check, what did I find? I have some items that are in compliance. So if we take a look at this, you can see that the status is disabled. Oh, it looks like I need to rerun that compliance check, don't I? You can do that quickly. Okay, so when we take a look at this, I'm looking at the wrong one, aren't I? Here we go, inactive. We just moved systems. Oh, okay, here's a problem. We just moved systems. So what, all of our users are in compliance. Not a good demo, is it? So, so this is what we can do, though. Oh, nothing was included. So what happens with this, and what you will want to do, is schedule the regular check command. Again, pop up the command line. And what you would do is schedule this to run on a regular basis. And again, what is regular? You could do daily. Most people for inactivity do weekly. So they would put this in the job schedule entry to look at inactive profiles. What most people do then after that, once they're comfortable that you have omitted all of the right profiles, is that they will also schedule an immediate fix-it right afterwards. And again, what this will do is set any of those profiles that are not already set to disabled will be set to disabled. And that way it automates it and you don't have to worry about it. Now, one more point of automation is this delete template. And this is a special template. It ships with the product. And again, you can include and omit things. In this case, I'm going to include profiles that are inactive 90 days and omit certain profiles. And then what happens is that this next screen is not all of the attributes of the user profiles, but what this one is for the delete. And this is actually the parameters from the delete user profile command. So what happens when you run a compliance check on this is that in this case it will look for all of the profiles inactive 90 days, omitting some profiles. When you run fix-it against this, it actually deletes the profiles. The question I always get is, well, what do you do with owned objects if the profile owns the objects? Again, it's the same parameters as you get on delete user profile. So if it owns objects, you can say to not delete the objects. You can say to delete the objects, or maybe you change the ownership. Totally up to you what you do. Again, this can be an automated process and set it up. We have people who run this once a week, and just that way their systems are clean. They don't have to worry about it. The way, again, Fix-It has a report, so you can get a report of all the profiles that are deleted, not a problem. You also have the message log that lists it when something is deleted. So reporting is there. We've actually had people have their auditors ask, how do I know that you're deleting profiles after 90 days? So this policy shows that and proves it to your auditors. Okay, this next one was deleting profiles, and the last one is finding profiles with special authorities. So again, I'm in a number of clients where they are taking a list of profiles that used to have all object or that currently have all object and comparing that against the profiles on the system that are currently configured that way. So again, if we take a look at what that looks like, we'll just call this power. And in this case, I'm going to look for all of the users that have all object special authority assigned to their profile or that are a member of QSEC offer. Okay? And just like libraries and directories, we have this new parameter. So new profile allowed. In this case, it's going to be no. So just like libraries, I'm going to run a compliance check. The first time it runs, it gets the list of users, it gets that baseline. You create a new one. Rerun that compliance check. It's now out of compliance, and it is a simple test to now I have one that is now has all object or is a member of CUSIC offer. Very easy to find what used to be a long and arduous process of comparing profiles, right? Writing a query to list out the special authorities and so forth, and you can do it just that quickly. Well, that was number 10, and so I believe that our time is up. And so I would love for you to contact us at SkyView Partners for more information on these tips for our products and offerings. So JD, I'll hand it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Carol. I want to thank everyone for attending this morning. Again, if you'd like more information, you can contact your authorized SkyView reseller or come to our website at skyviewpartners.com.